Right now, FIFA has an active disciplinary investigation open against Argentina for the brawl, for the throat grab, for turning their backs on Spain during the trophy ceremony. Official, on the record, ongoing. At the exact same time, a private letter from FIFA's own president has just leaked. And in it, he doesn't call Argentina's conduct a disgrace. He calls it professionalism. Same organization, same week. Two completely different stories, depending on whether the door is open or closed. And that's just where this starts, because underneath that letter is a second story about how one of this tournament's biggest rulings might not have followed FIFA's own rules at all, and a third detail about why the President of the United States wants this exact man running the United Nations. Stay with me, because these three things connect in a way that's genuinely hard to believe. Let's go. The letter? Here's what actually leaked. A private letter from FIFA President Gianni Infantino to Claudio Tapia, the president of Argentina's Football Federation, written in the aftermath of the final. In it, Infantino praises Argentina's professionalism throughout the tournament. Read that again, slowly, because the timing is what makes this so strange. This letter exists at the same time FIFA's disciplinary committee is formally investigating Argentina for exactly the opposite of professionalism, a post-final brawl involving a throat grab, players turning their backs on Spain's trophy ceremony, and conduct serious enough that FIFA opened an official case with an assigned prosecutor. You do not write a private letter praising professionalism to the Federation, you are simultaneously investigating for a lack of it. Unless the public version of events and the private version of events are two very different things. Think about what it actually takes for a letter like this to leak in the first place. Private correspondence between a federation president and the head of world football doesn't end up in the press by accident. Someone inside one of these organizations decided this contradiction was worth exposing, which tells you this isn't just an awkward coincidence. Somebody close to this situation looked at the gap between what FIFA was saying publicly and what its own president was writing privately, and decided the public deserved to see it. So which one is real? The official disciplinary case, built for the cameras and the press releases, or the private letter, written for an audience that was never supposed to see it? Because right now, we have documented evidence of both, coming from the same man, about the same team, in the same week. If you want to actually understand what's happening behind FIFA's press releases, instead of just reading the headline version, subscribe now, because the next part of this story is where it gets genuinely serious. The ruling nobody approved? Remember the Balogun suspension? The USA forward whose red card got mysteriously overturned right after President Trump personally called Infantino? At the time, FIFA insisted the decision was clean, procedural, nothing unusual. Trump himself said publicly that he didn't tell Infantino what to do, just that he called for a review. Here's what's since come out. The FIFA Disciplinary Committee has 19 members. Reports now indicate that the committee's chairman, Mohammed Al-Kamali, made the actual determination to lift Balogun's suspension without consulting the other 18 members of the committee at all. One person, alone, made the call on the single most politically sensitive disciplinary decision of the entire tournament, right after a call from the sitting president of the United States, ahead of a winner-go-home match for the tournament's co-host nation. FIFA maintains Trump's involvement didn't affect the outcome. But if the process itself skipped 18 out of 19 committee members, that's not really a story about whether Trump influenced one phone call anymore. That's a story about whether FIFA's own disciplinary process is something one man can quietly bypass whenever the stakes are high enough. And if it happened once, in the most visible match of the tournament, with the whole world watching, you have to ask how many quieter decisions never get reported on at all, in matches nobody's paying this much attention to. The Trump connection. And now here's where this stops being just a football story. Trump and Infantino's relationship didn't start this tournament. FIFA opened an office inside Trump Tower, with Infantino personally announcing it alongside Eric Trump, saying, "Our success is your success," to the Trump Organization. Infantino attended Trump's inauguration. He's visited the Oval Office multiple times. He wore a MAGA-style hat at one of Trump's Board of Peace meetings. During the World Cup itself, Trump sat next to Infantino at nearly every major event: the semi-final, the final, the trophy ceremony, and Infantino personally awarded Trump FIFA's inaugural Peace Prize months before the tournament even started. Then, after Spain lifted the trophy, FIFA's own social media accounts posted photos of the celebration, with Trump conspicuously cropped out of frame. Hours later, the White House reposted the same moments, uncropped, Trump front and center. A tiny, almost petty detail on its own. But paired with everything else, it looks like an organization trying to have it both ways, publicly distancing itself from Trump's presence for the cameras, while privately, the relationship keeps deepening behind the scenes. And here's the detail that ties it all together. Reports now say Trump is personally pushing for Infantino to become the next Secretary General of the United Nations. Not a minor endorsement, an active, reported campaign, with Trump calling Infantino someone respected by everyone around the world, someone with a special ability to bring people together. Infantino's current FIFA term runs through 2027, and he could seek a fourth term as president even while this UN push is happening in parallel. Think about what that actually means. The same man accused of quietly overriding his own disciplinary committee, the same man caught praising a team privately while investigating them publicly, is being positioned by the President of the United States for one of the most powerful diplomatic roles on the planet. A role that exists specifically to hold institutions accountable to the international rules they claim to follow. Why this isn't the first time? If any of this feels familiar, that's because it should. Infantino has a documented history of brushing off exactly this kind of criticism. Years ago, at a FIFA Congress, he stood in front of delegates and dismissed mounting criticism of his leadership as fake news and alternative facts, even telling the room that FIFA bashing has become a national sport in some countries. That was long before his relationship with Trump became public and close, which means the instinct to wave away scrutiny rather than answer it directly didn't start with this tournament. It's been the operating pattern for years, and this is just the version of it happening in front of the biggest audience football has ever had. That history matters here, because it changes how you should read FIFA's silence on all three of these stories. This isn't an organization encountering uncomfortable questions for the first time and fumbling the response. This is an organization with a long, documented track record of treating legitimate scrutiny as an attack to be dismissed rather than a question to be answered. When you already know that's the pattern, a leaked letter, a bypassed committee, and a quiet UN campaign stop looking like three unrelated headaches. They start looking like three data points in the same long-running story about how this organization actually handles accountability when nobody's forcing it to. What happens next? None of these three threads are actually closed yet, which is exactly why this is worth watching closely instead of moving on to the next headline. FIFA's disciplinary investigation into Argentina is still technically open, which means the organization now has to decide whether to let it run its course honestly, right after its own president was caught privately praising the team under investigation. If the case quietly softens or disappears in the coming weeks, that leaked letter becomes the explanation nobody can unknow. The disciplinary committee situation is arguably even more serious, because it's not really about one red card anymore. It's about whether FIFA's own governance structure means anything at all if its chairman can act alone on the sport's biggest stage without the other 18 members even being consulted. That's a precedent, not just a moment, and precedents tend to get used again once nobody objects the first time. And the UN angle is the one to actually watch over the longer term. If Infantino's current FIFA term runs through 2027 while a UN campaign builds in parallel, that's not a distraction from football governance. It's a preview of how much international weight one person is about to be handed, built on the back of exactly the kind of decisions we've just walked through. So here's where this actually leaves us. A leaked letter that contradicts an open disciplinary case. A ruling that may have bypassed 18 of 19 committee members. A president publicly cropped out of photos and privately courted for a UN role. None of these are rumors. They're documented, reported, on the record, from real outlets covering this in real time. What connects them isn't a single conspiracy with a name and a motive. It's a pattern of an organization that says one thing in public and does another in private, at almost every single turn this tournament. The letter tells you FIFA's public disciplinary process might be theater. The disciplinary ruling tells you the process behind that theater might not even follow FIFA's own rules. And the Trump relationship tells you why nobody at FIFA has much incentive to change any of it. When the most powerful man in the country hosting your tournament is actively campaigning to hand you an even bigger job, there's very little pressure to clean anything up. It's worth being honest about what we don't know here too. Nobody has proven that Infantino's letter was written in bad faith, or that Al-Kamali's decision was corrupt, rather than just unusually fast. FIFA hasn't been forced to answer for any of these three things individually yet, let alone all three together. But the pattern itself, public accountability paired with private warmth, formal process paired with informal shortcuts, is now documented across three completely separate stories in the same few weeks. At some point, that stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like how this organization actually operates. So which detail actually gets you? The leaked letter, the disciplinary committee being cut out of its own decision, or Trump pushing for Infantino at the UN? Because honestly, all three of these should be their own story, and FIFA is hoping you only notice one of them at a time. If you want this followed properly, every leak, every ruling, every quiet contradiction, subscribe now. This isn't close to over.